Hello, welcome to Helicopter Train Videos. In this short video, we're going to talk about which helicopter you should train in. This is a short clip from episode 1 of the Helicopter Training Podcast, How to Become a Helicopter Pilot, and you can find that full episode in the description or on our YouTube channel's podcast tab. Now here's another question that gets asked a lot, choosing the right helicopter for training. So first of all, I'd say it doesn't matter so much really as the instructor and the other variables affecting your progress, like the availability, weather, how close it is to where you live, etc. But it can affect potentially your opportunities for your first job. We'll talk about that in a minute. But at the end of the day, they are great pilots flying all sorts of missions in all sorts of airframes, and they learn in all sorts of helicopter models. So don't be boxed into thinking you have to fly a certain model. But let's go through some options. Robinson R22. There's a lot of them around. They're quite fast. They're twitchy. They are quite hard to, as far as some of these other models, they are relatively hard to learn to fly in. They have a slim cockpit, so it's quite cozy side by side. Seat weight limit is 240 pounds. Ideally, you want to be quite a bit under that, especially if you're thinking about trying to become an instructor. There are lots of them around, and so it is easier to find work. If you came through a Robinson school and you didn't get hired on there for some reason, there are a lot of other options across the country flying Robinsons. Now there is the whole SFAR 73 thing with low G and low RPM considerations. The SFAR 73 is a specific rule. There's a whole history of that, and I have some videos that talk about what that training means. But that shouldn't put you off. Any helicopter can be dangerous if it's not flown properly, so don't be put off by some of the negativity you hear about Robinsons. I almost guarantee the people that are saying that have not got very much, if any, time in the R22. Me and Kenny Keller talked about that a fair bit. It's a good airframe. I mean, it's reliable, and like I say, there's a lot of them around. The R22s run, depends on where you are in the country, somewhere around $300 to $350 an hour. Now, if you're a bigger person and the R22 is not a fit for you, there is the R44 that has a 300-pound seat limit. It is obviously a lot more expensive to run. You're talking about $650 to $700 if you're renting. One quick thing to add is there's also the R44 Cadet, which is going to be cheaper, and the Raven 1 is cheaper than the Raven 2. Another thing is that the R44, it is easier generally than the R22 to learn to fly, despite the cost. Something to consider. Our flight school, we do a little bit of both. We do most of our training in the R22, but we also get you in the R44. That's great because it gets you the hours you need to be able to teach in both the R22 and the R44. And as you progress as an instructor, it opens the door for some of the R44 jobs like Pollux up in Alaska with having R44 time. The Cabri. This is a great modern aircraft. It's been designed specifically for training. It's safe. It's easier to learn. It is the European style in that the blades turn in the different direction to the R22 and R44. So you have a different power pedal, and there's some aerodynamics that are kind of opposite. It's really like a mini EC-130 or H-130. Cool helicopter. No seat weight limit as far as I understand. It's more of a center of gravity limit. There aren't so many of them around, but the numbers are increasing. And they are typically running about $450 to $500 an hour. The Enstrom, there's a few of those around, piston Enstroms, depends on the model, but I think they're around a 300-pound seat weight, typically running about $350 to $400 an hour. Now, you do have ground resonance with these fully articulated helicopters to consider, so that's another thing to be thinking about. No helicopter's perfect, they've all got things you have to be concerned about. I don't think that would, again, stop you from choosing it to train in, but just to understand. Not so many of them around. So again, if you come out of training and you can't work for your flight school, you will have to travel a fair bit to maybe find another Enstrom operator. Schweizer. Schweizers have been around a long time, and they're a good training helicopter in that they're pretty mellow for autos. They do suffer from ground resonance as well. They're quite slow, so if you want to get anywhere, they've got quite a wide cockpit. They have a seat weight of around 300 pounds per seat, I believe. $300 to $350 an hour, and again, one of the main problems is there's just not so many of them around. Maybe your own helicopter. Maybe you want to buy your own helicopter. We know clients who have done that. They've bought a Bell 505, for example, and they do maybe their initial training in the R22, and then they work up to get some time and experience in their own helicopter. The trouble with that is typically it's an insurance issue, so they may have to fly with an instructor to build hours after the initial certifications are done, but that's another option too if you can afford it. I think one of the big questions with the airframes is, how is it equipped? Can you do your instrument training in those aircraft? How does it affect your first job opportunities? For example, you could be the best student and you come in with 200 hours, a really nice person, but if you haven't got 50 hours in the R22, you can't be hired to work as an R22 instructor. And to be honest, most people would want to see a lot more than 50 hours in the R22 to be an instructor in the R22. That's just the legal minimum. But we have current instructors that work for us that started in Schweizers and started in Cabri, and they switched and came to us early, about 60 hours in. They did the rest of the training in the R22 and the R44, and their varied experience adds to their skills and knowledge. So remember, you can move school. You don't have to stay. For whatever reason, these guys moved to come work with us and finish up their ratings, and they came work as an instructor for us further down the line. There's obviously a bit of a learning curve to any change, though, whether it's changing school, airspace, or airframe, but that's something to consider as well. As a bit of an afterthought, I went to the FAA registry for aircraft, downloaded the database, and sorted it by airframe type, and got the numbers. And these are all aircraft that have been registered for private owners, commercial operations, as well as, obviously, flight schools. But it'll give you a rough idea of the breakdown of airframes. There were over 1,800 R44s. Now, that's a lot. There's quite a few used for commercial operations as well as private ownership, not just the flight schools. It is the most common light helicopter in the US. There were about 800 R22s of all different models. There was 420-ish Schweizer Hughes piston models, the 269 and 300 series. Around 260 Enstrom piston models, the 280s and the F28s, and 60 Cabri G2s. If you've already got started with training, or maybe you're partway through, we'd love to hear about your experience with this. What aircraft did you train in? How did you choose? Send your feedback to helicoptertrainingpodcast.com/contact, where you can fill out a form or you can record audio, and we might feature your feedback on a future show. So this clip was just a small piece of what we covered in episode 1 of the Helicopter Train podcast, which was how to become a helicopter pilot. In the full episode, we break down questions like, what are the age, education, and medical requirements? What's the typical training path and how long does that take? How much does it all cost? And what are the financing options like VA benefits, scholarships, and loans? How do you pick the right helicopter to train in? And how you can get started with free home study resources, plus a bunch of other stuff. So you can find the full episode right here on this YouTube channel under the podcast tab, or you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite podcast player is. Just search for Helicopter Training Podcast. And don't forget, you can start learning right now on the Helicopter Training Videos YouTube channel with video playlists covering things like ground school subjects, flight maneuvers, as well as following along with a student on every training flight from day one all the way through to check ride. If you haven't already, please click subscribe to get all the latest videos and help support this channel. And then finally, for more information, including articles and quizzes and resources, and how to support this volunteer project, check out our website, helicoptertrainingvideos.com. Thanks for watching, fly safe.